Listen, guys, on the situation with Troy, the off-grid world, I'm not taking back anything I said in the last video. What you did to him was wrong with calling in all those hits on him and his location. What you did was wrong in stalking the location. There are people who maybe weren't uploading all the videos of their hate campaign, but the thing with Bill and Rosa and their off-grid thing, where they got attacked, where they're truck drivers. It's a husband and wife truck driver team. The problem is that when you got one group of people in the Atlantic seaboard, northeast area that were thinking it's cool and they're uploading. I don't care if those videos were fake, where somebody's driving down the road and says, we're stalking him at his place, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I don't care if it's fake. You're still engaging in behavior that you thought was okay. You're still encouraging that kind of behavior. And this was over. Whatever this grievance was does not sound to me like any sort of legitimate vendetta. The situation, Bill and Rosa, I don't think there was any serious vendetta against them. It's somebody seeing something where they play monkey see, monkey do with people's homes and people's off-grid projects because those do have certain vulnerabilities. When I talked about the location of mine in videos being in Eastern Oregon, I lied. It was actually in Northern Washington. Why did I lie? Personal security, operational security. You really, the climate's the same, so that as far as discussing that, I did that to protect the full-time people out there. I did that to protect their security. On the other hand, there were others who were watching some of the videos that were trying like hell to find that. They were trying like hell to go and do problems, and there were others that were not online at all that were attacking this thing because they didn't like the full-time guy. And when we saw these things come to fruition, we figure out who the good guys and the bad guys are, but it's all kind of halfway secret and halfway offline and halfway online and different forums where people are using fake names and all that kind of not so fun stuff. With Troy, unfortunately for a lot of you, we know exactly who you are and we know who you associate with. And I am hearing denials on some of this, and I noticed the voice in the videos versus allegedly recorded voices in some phone conversations, and they do sound different. But the situation remains the same. There are people who thought it was cool to post a whole bunch of stuff about how much fun they're going to have stalking somebody, gang stalking somebody, or pretending to gang stalk somebody, and then what happens to other people who are living that lifestyle is the same thing because somebody says, "Ooh, yeah, this is how we can stalk and harass somebody." You got to realize there's psychotic people out there that do it just because they want to, just because they can, just because they'll pick a victim's name just almost out of the phone book, almost randomly, and start doing stuff like this just because they think it's cool to hate them. It's cool to find some attribute about them that justifies this little campaign. And it's cowardly, and it's shitty, and it's the same basic cowardly shit as somebody who would sit on a roadside with a sniper rifle and take shots at cars just because they can. When you're looking at people who are public figures, controversial public figures, again, when we're doing a threat analysis, we look at, okay, who's actually been hurt? And the assassin who gets through is quite often somebody who was not somebody with a personal grievance, because that's somebody they're not all looking for. And that's why it's illegal to incite violence against certain people in certain countries, incitement. What I saw with Troy was sure looked to me like a bunch of incitement. Okay, that's what it looked like to me. When somebody is stating a lot of grievances and making accusations, and a lot of those end up not being true, or they're extremely exaggerated, well, that's still incitement. Okay, and sometimes we'll look at that, or I'll look at that. Other people who understand the law will look at that and say, wow, here's some real selective editing or selective censorship going on. Is somebody whose videos inciting a lot against somebody they're up, they remain up, and then there's not much self-censorship on these things. And I would understand the lack of self-censorship, but there are other issues that are going to come from that. I got to check my little timer here. So with Troy, the situation's failing. With the survival groups that are associated with that, that's what a failed survival retreat is going to look like. Is it because he got stubborn? Maybe. Quite possibly so. Anybody who has been down and out homeless probably got there for a reason, and it probably had something to do with being stubborn. It probably had something to do with being stubborn and wrong about some economic issues. And that is a fact. It's a painful fact for people that have been through it. It's a painful fact for somebody who's been through it and says, okay, I got to do something differently. This didn't work out. Or we're going to try and do the same thing, but we've got some better way of doing it. If you're doing the exact same thing over and over again and it fails over and over again, it's probably because it's not going to work. When Edison was working on the electric light bulb, yeah, the electric light bulb element was something he was going to keep going with, but how much gas to put in there, pressure, no pressure, vacuum, all these other elements, they were changing. And for others to analyze that and come to conclusions, well, a lot of those conclusions are equally wrong. And the game on this is to make these things work. So if you want to prove something to the rest of us out here in the internet world, what you've got to do is put together and cooperate with something that's going to work. I think Man of Many Things has the idea right with the guys that are with that circle of people in the Northeast of associating with other people that have the channels. I think that makes sense. When there are people who would disqualify me from whatever their little thing is, not want to meet up, not want to do that, then, well, that saved us a lot of trouble. They sat through whatever videos, came to whatever conclusions they wanted to come to, and that saved us a lot of trouble. That's the purpose of having a lot of this now before shit hits the fan, before you're in an extremely vulnerable situation, before you learn that, hey, wait, some people involved with this were bad people. The bad people have a tendency to be very skilled at manipulating and concealing certain aspects of what they're up to. There's good people who, for a lot of very legitimate reasons, are going to be extremely cautious for a lot of legitimate reasons. So we take this all as a learning experience. We also have to look at the values of our society aren't just made to work for Trump and Melania. They have to work for Troy and Melanie. The values and the ways this society works has to work for people like Troy and Melanie, because the rich and the elite are always going to work out. Okay, it's almost always going to work out for the elite. It's always going to work out for those really smart, savvy people. That's why it's an act of generosity for Trump to go to the White House. He's not there for profit. It's an act of philanthropy for him to do his best to make America great again, according to his belief system. We all knew that Hillary was there to fuck us over, okay, and get out of it with a profit. We all know that as much as some of us went for the Libertarian candidate, that's usually a losing campaign that is out to prove that, well, at least we could be philosophically consistent. And right now, there probably ought to be a Libertarian campaign for midterm elections to bring judges in. But for the economy and for the value system, especially Trump supporters, you need to understand that your values for Trump and Melania have to be able to work for Troy and Melanie.